All right, I'm very excited to be joined by Emma Valahu, a client and now collaborator at the Alpha Lead Academy. Emma, great to have you.
Thank you very much. Great to be
Thank
here.
you for joining. Yeah, so we've been working now almost to the day, I believe, well, maybe 6 months and a week that we've been working together. You've been part of the Alpha Lead Academy. Could you give a bit of an intro to people who don't know you yet? And can you tell a little bit about what you were doing before we met and what you're doing now?
Sure. So before we met, I was basically teaching English to business people, more in the line of developing their communication skills, rather than just developing their English knowledge. My background is many, many years of teaching English, and I had eventually kind of developed my own business of working with business people mainly, to improve their communication skills in order to help them improve their career, work up the ladder, things like that. But it was slow going, difficult to get clients, felt like I was doing lots of peddling but not getting very far. And that's when I kind of found you and reached out to try and help me to build my business, my teaching business. Cut a long story short, we changed direction. Eventually kind of incrementally changed my whole business plan, business direction.
Absolutely. And let's talk about it. I'm just curious, how were you getting clients at the time?
Through LinkedIn, through posting and reaching out, doing outreach, trying to start conversations, which I really didn't like doing. Felt very uncomfortable doing that. And that, I suppose, is what was really slowing me down, is that I was just not doing nearly enough of that because I really wasn't comfortable, wasn't very sure what I was doing and how to do it properly. And trying to get people onto sales calls, trying to, get them to buy my program to help them. So I was going through the motions, but not very well.
Okay, well, let's talk about that a little bit later. But if you could give now an overview of how we pivoted and what we changed in your business and what you're doing now. Well,
throughout the sort of 6 months, we've pivoted about 2 or 3 times. The first time was to include, to have the kind of communication skills program, but to add something on to give more value. So maybe like doing helping them with their website, creating a better website for them. And eventually it just kind of evolved that I dropped the whole teaching English communication skills thing. And now I'm helping people to find their own clients on LinkedIn through ghostwriting LinkedIn content, through looking at their profile, sorting out the profile for them, and other things like that through LinkedIn.
Okay, good. And why do you think, or well, maybe not you think, but how do you remember what was the reasons for all these pivots that we did? It was simply that just one was just not resonating, it wasn't working. How did you determine that?
It was, do people who are, we changed to, we started to target people who were having their own businesses at the top of their companies, and small companies, or not really solopreneurs, but people with small companies, and discovered that actually the problem was not that they're English. They didn't really need English. They were quite confident with their English, and we were targeting lawyers particularly at the beginning, and kind of realizing that actually that really wasn't what they needed or what they wanted. They were quite interested in possibly developing their website or helping them with things on LinkedIn, helping with their marketing, but really English was not a clear problem that they needed to be solved. And even though I was kind of clinging on to this because of 25 years of,
Yeah.
of experience. I did eventually have to let it go. And I'm glad I did, because it really wasn't going to go anywhere. Also, it was just not kind of scalable in the same way as possibly what we sort of moved into later. So I think that was one of the things one of the first pivots. And then eventually the website idea kind of disappeared as well, because people, especially we were focusing also in Eastern Europe, and there just also wasn't really that urgency for a sort of high performing website, or they were quite happy getting somebody to kind of throw something together, or they already had pretty good websites. So that again was not something that seemed to be an area that they wanted help with.
Yeah. No, I get it. First of all, I think the main lesson from this is that you always need to go by what the market wants. And the great thing about you is that you were flexible in simply approaching this and just seeing what works, and whatever people will want to, I mean, within a reasonable scope of possible services, we are willing to adjust, right? And so that was like a classic example of us looking at what the market needs and then adjusting. So I think that's a very good thing. One thing that you mentioned, you said you're glad you let that go, the sort of the conditioning of the last 25 years and the work that you've been doing. Why did you actually want to move out of the teaching people English and better communication skills?
Well, I didn't initially. I didn't want to move out of it at all, but it just became more of encumbrance. It was getting in the way of actually moving forward. I was holding myself back. It was like I was dragging this anchor along, reluctant to let go and actually kind of move forward into something which was going to have more potential, was going to work much better for me. The other thing is that although I was reluctant to let it go, it is something which I have been thinking for quite a while of, I wish I could do something else. I've been doing this for, 2 decades. I think it's time to change. I've kind of had enough of this. It wasn't really pushing me at all. And it become a bit stale. And I think also possibly because I felt that way about it, that it was also coming across maybe in my lessons that, maybe it was time to move on.
Absolutely. Okay. So it was like you needed a bit of a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good.
So, yeah.
Okay. So we gradually pivoted effectively from you coaching individuals on their communication skills in English. And you now are doing something very different. You're doing for small businesses, LinkedIn ghostwriting, and helping them win clients. So you do kind of conversational prospecting for them, right? So you effectively moved from an educational role into a marketing and sales role, right? So that is quite a pivot in 6 months. And I always cite you as a great example of personal transformation. You believed in yourself that you can do it and you made it happen. So what do you think, what were the pivotal points in our collaboration that you remember from the last 6 months?
Well, apart from the you're going to have to let the teaching go part, all of the materials in the Alpha Lead Academy, I think, were, really instructional, really, like gold dust. I watched everything many, many times, the parts that were relevant to me, many, many times. So that was like the kind of foundation. I think the things which were really kind of pivotal was, I thought right at the beginning that I am doing the work, I am putting in the time, I am concentrating, I am getting things done, and was generally frustrated that the results were not there, or I wasn't getting through what I wanted to. And I think that one of the greatest things which I did learn was how to actually time block my calendar, my schedule, how to get rid of distractions, how to really focus and get through things in a much more efficient and effective way. That was, I think, and planning, kind of seeing a bigger picture and being able to kind of work backwards and plan in smaller increments, but thinking of a bigger picture at the end of it. In order to do that, I had to fight with a lot of mental crap, and the mindset work that we did with Anna was really powerful and really helped me to see that I was standing in my own way most of the time. And I just had to get out of my own way and just, you know, shut up, stop whining, get on with it, and you will see the results. But it took a lot of work to do that on Anna's part, on my part, on your part. You know, we all worked together quite a lot. It took, you know, checking in regularly with Anna. And that was also another really vital thing for me, really, really important, was the twice weekly meetings. If they hadn't been there, I wouldn't have done it, even with all of the videos, all of the materials, because I followed programs like that before where there wasn't that one-to-one. That is really what did it. It was the being able to come twice a week with the questions, with the problems, get the answers, go away, do it, come back. What's changed? What's working? What's not?
Perfect.
Those things were what really, really worked.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, you were the perfect example of somebody who has quite big sort of gap to bridge, right? You came from a teaching environment and now you move into marketing, right? And so absolutely, there must be a great feeling of, oh my God, can I even do this, right? I don't know half of these things, right? And so, but you were simply persistent in, while there were many conversations where you told me, you know, that you don't know how to do this, then yeah, sure, you have to learn it. But then you actually, and this is like the model example of, you know, personal transformation, while you were still saying things like, oh, I don't know how to do it, you still did it. You overcame the inner voice that told you, you cannot do this, you don't know how to do this. And so you just simply overcame it. And so for me, this is a wonderful example of simply how willpower, discipline, and tenacity gets you to the point where you are able to, you know, completely pivot, change your career and move into a completely new field. So really, I want to congratulate you on that. It's a big achievement. It's a big achievement, really. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So,
and I think the tenacity was something which I learned here. I didn't even know I had that tenacity.
There you go. That's awesome. That's great. So results. I mean, initially you started out with doing, you know, conversational prospecting, directing your content in a different way. What were the results? So you started booking calls. When did you start converting people? How did that go?
I started booking calls fairly early on, not masses, but they kind of trickled in fairly consistently. When I got better at the conversational prospecting, I'd probably say around about possibly month 4, then I was getting far more interaction on the DMs, and then being able to get people onto calls. I booked and I think it was about month 4 that I got my first win.
Yeah.
Converted my first client. Yeah. That was in the 4th month together.
Yeah. Perfect. And then you got a second client, right? That's now a recurring client. And then we also,
that was end of September.
End of September, exactly. And now we also started working together. So now you are already supporting some of our clients at the Alpha Lead Academy. So we kind of morphed the relationship from client to collaborator. So I'm very, very, very excited about that, because you are simply good at what you do. And that's why I asked you to join us. Cool. Any other salient points, anything that we did well in the Alpha Lead Academy that you want to highlight, that anything that comes to mind that we're good at?
There are so many, and some of the things I've already mentioned. I would say that you are very good at being pretty mean. But for all the right reasons. Being I don't know how it is that you put it, but you know, that you're the one who's going to get it done. You're going to get the work done. You're going to get the work out of us. And you're very good at doing that. And you're not terribly concerned on how many toes you trample on to get that, because it's the result that you want. And then Anna is very good at then putting the pieces back together again, at fixing all of the wounds, and helping me anyway to kind of put the two things together. It's gonna hurt, but it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And so it's got to hurt, because, and this is something which I still tell myself, because every time I think I can't do this or this is horrible, Anna's voice comes into my head, and it's, if you want the life that you're dreaming of, you're going to have to let go of the life that you've got. And I think that is really the most important thing, is that you have forced me to let go of the life that I had, because it was not giving me the life that I wanted. And I think that was, you know, a very good thing.
Awesome. That's great.
Something else, what also really did help me was the listening to and really trying to crack sales calls. I'm nowhere near there yet, but I feel that I have made leaps and bounds, that I have made a lot of progress there. And that was through getting over my kind of embarrassment, letting you hear my sales calls, recording them, letting you hear them, getting your feedback. And I can remember before I got my first client, I listened to your feedback about 4 times in the sort of 2 hours before I was going to have this sales call. And I went over some of your sales calls, listened to what you did, the questions that you asked, the way you put them, the way you responded. And I just listened to them again and again and again for about 2 hours. I made notes, I wrote things out so that I could just, you know, come out with it, had it on my screen. And that was the secret for that first sale.
That is so it. And I really want to applaud you for that. It's amazing, because it's so few people do that, right? This is the tenacity that I'm speaking about. It's not just the go, but also the reflecting on stuff. It's re-listening and listening again and again and again, because this stuff will not sink in immediately. I think most people make this mistake. And I recently heard Alex Hormozi talk about that. Like, when you found a good book, read it 5 times, because you will not get even a gist of it. When you read it for the first time, you need to read it over and over, because you will immediately forget 90%. And then the next time you catch it, maybe you only forget 80%. And then you will start uncovering nuances, just like when you watch a Shakespeare play, or when you really understand it, there's just so many million nuances. You know, Kenneth Branagh calls Shakespeare like a gold mine. You always just go in and just come up with something completely new that you didn't know was there. And that's, I'm not comparing myself to Shakespeare in any way, but that's like, you have to, when you are discovering a new topic, you really have to immerse yourself in it. And that is I was always very happy when you asked me if I could share any of my sales calls, which, by the way, of course, I'm always recording with the person's consent. Then I'm happy to share them, because that's what they are there for. And I was very happy when you asked for this, because I knew that you would actually be listening to it. You would be the person taking notes and extracting the value from them. And by doing this over and over again, and listening especially to yours, and we covered things like your tone of voice, the question coming at the wrong time, you know, how you ask it, how confident you sound, and all of that. And I saw so like how you improved in this. You're truly a testimony to hard work, and that you can, no matter what background you have, professional background, and you have a different goal, you can absolutely get there. So that's the Emma story in a nutshell for me. Cool. Awesome. Last question. If anybody is sort of on the fence, if they came to you and say, yeah, I'm thinking of working with Anna and Michael, but I just don't know, what would you tell them?
Don't hesitate. Go for it. You aren't going to regret it, and you actually don't have anything to lose. You only have everything to gain.
Awesome. Thank you, Emma. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.